"You don't deserve this family," my brother said, his voice slurred but loud enough for everyone to hear. He laughed. So did his wife. So did my mother. And that was the moment something inside me finally snapped. Not in anger, not even in sadness. Just something broke clean, like a quiet rope finally snapping after years of being pulled too tight. I didn't say anything. Not then. I just stood up from the dinner table, the one I'd set, the one I'd cooked for, the one I'd been expected to serve at like some invisible maid, and I walked away. Not dramatically, not stomping or shouting, just calmly, methodically. I walked out of that suffocating dining room, past the fake smiles on the family photos hanging crooked on the hallway wall, and into the garage. It still smelled like him in there. My dad, motor oil, old pine air fresheners, and dust-covered boxes that hadn't been touched since the funeral. I reached for the corner shelf behind the workbench, third drawer down, exactly where he always kept his tech stuff. And there it was, Dad's old backup hard drive, labeled in his handwriting, RH, External Backup 2021. I took it. Then I went upstairs, slipped my bag over my shoulder, grabbed Willow's leash, and clipped it to her collar. My dog, my only constant, lifted her head, ears perked as if she knew. She always knew. She didn't bark, she didn't whine. She just followed me down the stairs. Nathan said something else as I walked by. I don't even remember the words. It was probably some drunken muttering about me being dramatic or sensitive. But it didn't matter, because for once I didn't care what any of them thought. I didn't look back, not at the house, not at my brother, not even at my mother, who stood there in her pearls and fake concern, not lifting a finger. She didn't stop me. She didn't ask me to stay, and that silence said everything. Outside, the air was cold, sharp. It felt good. I opened the car door for Willow, slid into the driver's seat, and just sat there for a second. Breathing, feeling my heart beat in my chest like it had been waiting years to finally exhale. And I remember staring at the glove box for the longest time, fingers trembling, not from fear, but from the kind of clarity that feels like fire. I wasn't just leaving, I was done. I didn't know where I was going, I didn't have a plan. But I had my car, I had my dog, I had the only piece of my father they hadn't buried. And for the first time in my life, I felt free. It's funny, isn't it? How sometimes the biggest moment of your life doesn't come with fireworks or shouting matches or slammed doors. Sometimes it's quiet. Just you, a steering wheel, and the hum of a hard drive in your purse that holds more than anyone ever realized. Because what I found on that hard drive wasn't just old files or family memories. It wasn't just spreadsheets or photos or forgotten emails. It was proof. Proof of secrets. Proof of lies. Proof that the version of this family I'd been clinging to all my life had never really existed. And once I opened it, there was no going back. Not for them, not for me. I think I always knew I didn't belong, not in the dramatic teenage angst kind of way, but in that quiet, persistent ache that lives just under the skin, when you walk into a room and no one looks up, when you speak and people pretend they didn't hear you, when your presence is convenient, but your absence is more comfortable. That's what it was like growing up in the Hartley house. We weren't the kind of family that screamed or threw plates across the room. We were the kind that smiled through gritted teeth and passed judgment like salt at the dinner table. Nathan was the center of everything. My little brother, golden from birth. He had charm, swagger, that effortless way of getting what he wanted without ever asking. He could crash Dad's car and make it sound like someone else's fault. He could miss school for a week and come back with his record wiped clean. When he lied, people believed him. When he cried, people forgave him. And me? I was Elise, the quiet one, the responsible one, the one who got straight A's and took care of things when no one else wanted to. I was the kid who remembered birthdays, who cleaned the dishes without being asked, who sat silently in the back seat during every vacation photo. It didn't matter how hard I worked. The spotlight was never mine. And to be honest, I didn't even want it. I didn't need applause. I just wanted acknowledgement. A nod. A thank you, a we see you. But it never came. My mother, Catherine, wasn't cruel. That would have been easier to recognize. No, she was polished, polite, the kind of woman who could cut you with a compliment and make it sound like affection. Elise, you're just so simple. It's sweet. Or, not everyone needs to shine. Some people are just meant to support. She said those things with a smile, like they were kindnesses, and I believed her. For years, I believed her. When Nathan got arrested for a DUI at 19, it was me who picked him up from the station. I stayed up that night scrubbing the vodka smell out of the passenger seat before our parents woke up. When he crashed his second car, I lied to Dad and said I'd borrowed it. I paid for the repairs out of my college fund. Not that anyone ever asked where the money went. Dad, he was different. He noticed more than he said. He wasn't affectionate, but he was watchful. I caught him staring sometimes when Nathan would say something slick or walk away laughing after one of his dramatic tantrums. There was something in Dad's eyes then, a tired disappointment he never put into words. But he never stopped it. He never stepped in. Not when Nathan borrowed thousands from their retirement fund to launch that business that flopped. Not when he broke the fence and blamed me, and they believed him. Not even when I moved back home to help care for Dad after his stroke and ended up being the only one changing his sheets, feeding him soup, wiping his mouth while Mom managed the house from her phone in the other room. I remember those last few months before Dad passed. He'd grown quiet, not from illness, but from clarity. There was something different in his presence. He'd watch everyone so carefully. And sometimes when we were alone, he'd say things that didn't make sense to me then, like, "Don't let them bury you with me." Or, "You always saw the truth, Elise." I just wish I had done more with that. I didn't know what he meant. I thought maybe it was the medication, or regret, or the fog of knowing your time is almost up. But now, looking back, I think he was trying to warn me. I think he knew something. And he didn't trust anyone else enough to say it out loud. After the funeral, things only got worse. Nathan was suddenly in charge of everything. My mother made that clear. She said it was what Dad wanted, that Nathan had business sense and could handle the estate better than I ever could. Business sense, from the man who still owed 3 credit cards and couldn't keep a job longer than a year. I stayed in the guest room trying to help settle things. I cooked, I cleaned, I sorted documents and called the banks and managed the paperwork that Nathan said gave him a migraine. And every night, I lay awake in that twin-sized bed, Willow curled up beside me, wondering what the hell I was doing, why I was still there, why I was still trying, because deep down, I already knew the answer. I was holding on to something that never existed. I wasn't part of their family. I was just the shadow who filled the space between their messes. So when Nathan called me useless that night, when he looked me in the face and told me I didn't deserve the family I had bled for, something inside me didn't break. It woke up, and when I took that hard drive from Dad's old drawer, I didn't know exactly what I was going to find, but I knew with every bone in my body that it was going to tell me the truth. The truth they'd all tried to bury, the truth I had spent my whole life feeling but never seeing, and I was finally ready to see it. It was supposed to be a simple dinner. I had planned it for days, bought the groceries, prepped the roast, even made that lemon pie my mother always said was the only thing I do right. I wanted to keep the peace, even if I wasn't invited to be part of it. Eventually, I pulled into the parking lot of an old roadside motel just outside the city. It was the kind of place you only stay at if you're either running from something or you've just been thrown out. I guess I was both. I paid in cash, no questions asked. The clerk didn't even look up. Room 12, peeling wallpaper, buzzing fluorescent lights, a tiny TV with 2 channels that barely worked. I didn't care. I had a door that locked, a place to sit, and a dog that loved me no matter what. And I had the drive. I pulled it out from my bag and held it in my hands like it was a bomb. My father's handwriting stared back at me. R.H. External Backup 2021. His letters were neat, deliberate, like everything he did. He wasn't a man of chaos. He was a man of order, structure, precision. So why had he hidden this? Why didn't anyone else know about it? I plugged it into my laptop, heart pounding harder than it had the night he died. At first, nothing happened. Just the usual whirring, then a folder popped up. 3 of them. 1. Legal docs 2. Family 3. Private. Password required. My throat tightened. Of course he'd password protected something. I should have known, but the first 2 folders were open and curiosity, no, desperation, guided me like muscle memory. I clicked on legal docs first. Dozens of PDFs, some titled with Nathan's name, others marked with dates. It didn't take long to piece together what they were: bank records, property transfers, trust amendments, and then, one that made my stomach drop: Hartley Family Trust revised, not filed. I opened it. My hands started shaking. It was a complete rewrite of the family trust, dated 4 months before Dad died, and it named me, not Nathan, as the primary beneficiary. It stripped Nathan of financial control, assigning everything: assets, properties, insurance, to a neutral fiduciary, with me listed as the only living relative capable of executing decisions. But it had never been filed. No court stamp, no legal signature. Just my father's draft. Saved, hidden, untouched. Why? I scrolled down. There was a note at the bottom, typed in his usual terse style. "We'll finalize this when Elise confirms she'll stay in the house. I trust her. Nathan is unstable. Catherine is complicit." I read it 3 times. I trust her. Nathan is unstable. Catherine is complicit. My eyes burned, not with tears, but with confirmation. My father had seen everything. All those years I thought I was invisible. All those years I thought he stayed silent out of weakness or denial. He knew. And he'd been trying to protect something the only way he knew how: with facts, with proof. I clicked the next folder: family. Photos mostly. Some scanned letters, voice memos. I played one. Dad's voice filled the room, raspy, slower than I remembered, but sharp. Focused. "If anything happens to me, Elise, this drive will tell you what they never will. Nathan has made mistakes. He's lied, manipulated. I've watched Catherine help him cover it all. I tried to fix it quietly. But I don't trust the system anymore. I only trust you." He paused. "If you're hearing this, I'm gone. And if you've found this, they've pushed you far enough to look. Good. You're stronger than you think." I couldn't breathe. I hadn't heard his voice since the funeral. And now, here he was, talking to me like he knew this day would come. Like he knew I would be the one they'd discard, and that I'd be the one to uncover the rot. I clicked the last folder: private. Password required. I tried everything: Willow's name, Mom's birthday, his, mine. Nothing worked. I stared at the screen, heart hammering, until one phrase from his memo echoed again. "You're stronger than you think." I typed it. One word, no spaces: "You're stronger." Then you think: access granted. Inside were recordings, hidden camera footage, bank transfers, copies of emails between Nathan and my mother. There it was, laid bare. Nathan had been siphoning money from the family business, creating fake consulting invoices, and funneling the funds into a shell company registered in the Caymans. He had taken out a private loan against Dad's life insurance, and Mom had helped him forge Dad's signature on 3 separate documents. I stared at the screen, the motel room suddenly too small to contain the weight of what I had just learned. This wasn't just dysfunction. This was criminal, and I was sitting on a hard drive full of evidence. I looked over at Willow. She was watching me quietly, like she could sense everything. And in that moment, I made a decision. I wasn't going to cry anymore. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to knock on their door and ask them to love me. I was going to burn it down. With the truth, and this time they were going to hear me. The next morning, I sat in the motel room's stiff plastic chair, the sunlight creeping through the curtains like an invitation and a warning all at once. The hard drive was still plugged into my laptop, humming gently, as if daring me to act. I didn't hesitate. I wasn't just going to hold this information, I was going to use it. First, I emailed everything to myself. Then I backed it all up twice, once to a flash drive, once to a cloud folder with a locked vault. I'd learned enough from Nathan's lies over the years to know anything not backed up might as well be dead. Then I made 2 calls. The first was to my father's old attorney, Sylvia McLean, a sharp, no-nonsense woman who had handled Dad's affairs for nearly 2 decades. I wasn't sure if she'd take my word over Catherine's or Nathan's, but I had the receipts now, literal ones. I left a voicemail and attached a few files to an encrypted email marked URGENT. The second call was to Noah Lenz, a local investigative journalist. Years ago, he'd published a small expose on a real estate scam tied to Nathan's investment group. It never gained traction, mostly because my mother had pulled every favor and string to bury it, calling it a smear campaign against a grieving family. But I'd bookmarked his article back then, the same way you mark a page in a book you know you'll need someday. He picked up on the third ring. Lens. "My name is Elise Hartley," I said, voice calm, controlled. "You once looked into my brother's business." "You were right." He was silent for a beat. "Go on." "I have proof. Emails, legal documents, voice memos, forged signatures, shell companies. My father compiled it all before he died, and I have it." There was another pause, but this one felt alive. "Can you meet?" "Yes." We met 2 hours later in a cafe downtown. Neutral ground. Willow waited in the car, and I kept the flash drive in my coat pocket like a weapon. Noah looked older than I remembered. Tired, maybe, but sharper for it. He listened as I explained. He never interrupted. When I handed him the flash drive, he looked at it like it was pure gold. This, this is enough to sink them," he murmured, scrolling through some of the voice memos. "Why now?" "Because I don't want revenge," I said. "I want the truth to be louder than their lies." He nodded once. No dramatic promises, no guarantees, just quiet, determined understanding. "I'll verify everything. I'll write it clean. And Elise, this is going to make waves." I went back to the motel, exhausted. My hands still trembled, but not from fear, from power. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just the girl who cleaned up messes. I was the one who held the detonator. It took 2 days, and then everything broke. The article went live on a Wednesday morning. Headline in bold: "Local developer's empire built on fraud, family ties, and forged trusts. Exclusive files reveal the truth." It spread like fire. The voice clips went viral. Dad's handwritten notes were featured in sidebars. The forged documents, embedded for public viewing. Nathan's face, once smiling on real estate ads, was now plastered next to words like fraud, embezzlement, forgery. Within hours, the phone at the family home rang off the hook. Investors backed out. A class action lawsuit was launched. Local news vans parked outside Catherine's gated driveway, and suddenly her manicured world was crawling with people she couldn't control. She released a statement calling the story a malicious attack by a bitter relative, but that only made things worse. Because Sylvia, my father's lawyer, confirmed everything I'd sent. She validated the trust documents, confirmed Dad had tried to revise the will before he died, that he had grown increasingly concerned about unethical decisions being made under his name. Sylvia even released a personal statement. Just one line. Mr. Richard Hartley intended to protect the one person who never asked him for anything. Nathan tried to deny everything. Claimed the files were doctored, that I was mentally unstable, that Dad had lost his mind before he died. But then the footage came out. Dad had recorded more than voice memos. He had hidden a small camera in his study. And in one of the saved videos, you could clearly see Nathan and Catherine signing a document together, whispering about moving the money before Elise notices. They had no idea he'd been filming. And once that footage hit the internet, the sympathy shifted. Suddenly, I wasn't the unstable one. I was the one they underestimated, and they had done it publicly. Nathan's accounts were frozen. A federal investigation was opened. Catherine's name was removed from multiple charities and boards. Her perfect image? Shattered. Friends stopped answering. Her circle collapsed. But I didn't feel joy. I didn't dance around the motel room. I didn't smile. I felt clean. For the first time in my life, I wasn't holding their secrets. I was holding mine, and I wasn't afraid anymore. The day after the article broke, I got a call from Sylvia McLean. Her voice was calm, clipped, but I could hear something behind it, something like respect. "Elise," she said, "we're reopening your father's trust." My breath caught. "It's going to take time," she added, "but we've reviewed the files. Between the memos, the revised trust documents, and the video footage, there's no legal standing for Nathan or Catherine to claim power over the estate." I sat on the edge of the motel bed, gripping the phone like it might disappear. "And Elise, you need to know, your father was deliberate. The fact that he saved it all for you means he never doubted you. Not once." I didn't cry, not then, not for her to hear. I simply said, "Thank you." 2 weeks later, I stood at the front gate of what used to be our family home. It was quiet. No photographers now, no investors, no curated garden parties, just a big hollow house with too many windows and too few people. The locks had already been changed. Catherine and Nathan had been ordered to vacate during the investigation. I didn't go inside. I didn't want the house. I didn't need the walls that had watched me suffer. I had inherited the truth. That was enough. I sold the house, every brick, every floorboard, every tainted room, and with the money, I did something no one in my family would have expected. I bought a small piece of land an hour outside the city, a stretch of quiet fields, a worn-down barn, and a house that needed more love than it had ever been given. It was perfect. I turned it into the Hartley Sanctuary, a rescue space for senior dogs and abandoned animals. Willow was the first to christen the porch with her muddy paws. Her tail wagged as if she knew this was finally ours. Not borrowed, not tolerated, ours. Volunteers came, then donations, then stories. People sharing how they too had been the Elise in their families. The unseen one, the giver, the one who left quietly but carried the weight of everyone else's mess. I never responded to Catherine's letter. She sent one. A weak apology masked in excuses. We didn't know. You always seemed fine. We were grieving, number they knew, and when they thought no one was looking, they chose cruelty over care, greed over truth, appearances over love. Nathan? Last I heard, he was still under investigation. The smile he wore like a shield had vanished in every photo since. I didn't need to follow his downfall. That wasn't my purpose, because this wasn't revenge. This was freedom. Some days I still think about my dad, about that soft warning he gave me once. Don't let them bury you with me. I didn't understand it then, but I do now. He saw what I couldn't face. He saw how deep the betrayal would go. And instead of leaving me powerless, he left me the one thing that could tear the lie down to the studs, the truth. That backup drive wasn't just a collection of files, it was an inheritance of trust. He didn't leave me the house. He didn't leave me the title. He left me something far more powerful. The proof that I was never crazy, never dramatic, never weak. I was the only one strong enough to stand in the fire and not turn to ash. And now? Now I wake up to the sound of rescued dogs barking in joy. I drink my coffee on a porch that smells like hope. I get letters from people who tell me I gave them the courage to walk away too. Because the truth, when spoken fully, doesn't just destroy lies, it builds new lives. So when people ask me how I found the strength to expose my own family, I smile softly and say, I didn't do it to ruin them. I did it to finally stop them from ruining me.